the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Wednesday, August 18th in the year 2021. And no matter if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast or if you're watching us on YouTube, I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes a part of your day. On today's episode, we're going to discuss three thoughts I have about the linebacker position going into the season. Also, we're going to continue our Buckeye road trip around the NFL. Today, we will be joined by your boy Q, the host of Locked On Raiders, as he will talk about former Buckeye defensive lineman, Mr. Jonathan Hankins. But we begin today's show discussing and talking about some things we've learned about the defensive linemen just a day ago. Also, a few others, because there's a lot of news that's come out over the past couple days. Defensive linemen, one of my favorite things to watch on the football field. I love linemen. Offense, defense, D-end, D-tackle, center, offensive tackle. Don't really matter to me. I love watching all of it. As a former lineman when I was playing football myself, I love the battle in the trenches, and this is where games are going to be won. Games are going to be lost. Ohio State won the game against Clemson in the semifinal game in last year's playoff because they won, mainly because they won the battle in the trenches. They lost the national championship game because they lost the battle in the trenches. Say whatever you want about that Devonta Smith play when Tough Borland was chasing him. That was a lot of schematics, not so much all on Tough Borland, but the game was won and or lost in the trenches. And the defensive linemen, they talked, and we learned a lot about them, a lot about what we may see from them in the season. Also, there was one new individual, Quinn Ewers, who is now on the football team. He is enrolled. I mentioned that a couple of days ago. But one thing I want to remind people up front, with Quinn Ewers being there at practice, he's a newcomer, very similar to me with my first year playing football in the 7th grade. You got to learn everything. Now, granted, he knows how to put his pads on. He knows where the thigh pad is. You know, like I didn't know anything about football, pads or anything. He's been playing his whole life. But Quinn Ewers at Ohio State, he has to learn, just a quick reminder, he has to learn where to go during practice, and he has to learn where to stretch, where to stand up, where to line up when stretching. The season is September the 2nd. That's the first game. Today's the 18th of August. People out there, some of you might think that Quinn Ewers is going to start game one or have a good shot of starting and doing a lot of things very quickly. Let's pump the brakes real quick. He's a talented individual, but for him to expect to play quite a bit within the first portion of the season or play at all, highly unlikely. Just let him get used to and acclimated to Ohio State football. To the defensive lineman, Tehran Vincent, who has battled numerous injuries throughout his entire career at Ohio State. He is now 23 years old. He is now healthy, and we are looking to see a season like we have not seen from him at all while at The Ohio State University. Speaking of Tehran Vincent, him and Haskell Garrett are cross-training at both defensive tackle positions. The 3 technique and also the nose tackle, more of your 1 technique. Sometimes there's no shading on the center. That's rare. You're primarily going to get them shading one side or another. I remember when Ohio State played Rutgers last year. The nose tackle's name escapes me, but I remember he was a slanting shade. So you're looking at me now if you're watching the YouTube, and as I turn my body, he's shading this way on the person that's right in front of him. Those of you that are listening don't get the added visual aspect of this show right now. But instead of going straight on, he's turned a little bit at an angle, but still pointing at the person he's supposed to be shading at that time, hitting one half of his body or the other. But with Tehran Vincent and Haskell Garrett playing and cross-training at both defensive tackle positions, defensive tackle and nose tackle. The 3 technique or D tackle position gets more one-on-one blocks in pass rush. The nose tackle gets more of your combo blocks, even in the running game as well. So if you're cross-training at both, you can have them on the field at the same time, and they make them better pro prospects as well. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, that's what it is. I put JDB. I know JDB is not his name. Meant to put JJB in my notes. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, he thinks, and he, as looking at the defensive line in practice, the defensive line might be scary this year based off of what JJB. I don't know why I keep wanting to say JBB. Javonte Jean-Baptiste. I know it's JJB. I will get it correct. He is expecting big things from the defensive line this year, and he says it can be scary. I mean, scary, very scary. So I'm looking to see beginning of the season, middle of the season, around the games between at Rutgers October 2nd, Maryland at home on October 9th. Those 2 games, the defensive line will really be coming into form. You're going to get them to play well against Tulsa and Akron. Not really expecting much of a hiccup there. But once you get back into back-to-back conference games, I do think you'll get the defensive line to be getting into form. You will learn who the rotation is, what the rotation is, and exactly what to expect there. JT Tuamaloau, escaping names because of abbreviations and just initials on my paper. JT Tuamaloau was in great shape. This is coming from the mouth of Larry Johnson, was in great shape upon arriving at Ohio State. And I do believe that goes into him losing his black stripe when he did. Last but not least, Palaie Nayotioti, Palaie Nayotioti. I've heard different pronunciations of his first name, Palaie or Palaie, whichever one it is. We're still waiting on his waiver. Ohio State is waiting on the waiver to be granted from the NCAA. Nayotioti announced his transfer after the deadline for you to be immediately eligible to play in the fall or the winter. Not just for fall sports, but also for the winter. I believe the deadline was on July 1st. He transferred after that, dealing with some COVID situations with the family. They are still waiting on his waiver to be granted. So I don't know. Still not sure if he's going to play this year or not. But the one positive about him is he has done everything the coaches have asked of him upon arriving at Ohio State, and that's a good sign for somebody that's battled injuries while at USC, has the 6'2", 250-pound frame that Ohio State can utilize now. Still waiting to see if he'll be granted the waiver to play, and if he is, how much does he play? That is to be determined. I got to step away very quickly. When we come back, we will discuss 3 thoughts that Jay has about the linebacker position going into the season. But first, check this out. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and all your UFC/MMA action. Before the next pitch, head over to betonline.ag on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for the runs to the playoffs. Head to betonline.ag on your laptop or mobile device to sign up today. And when you do, make sure you use that friendly promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sports book experts. If this is your first time listening or watching Locked On Buckeyes, I want to say welcome. Or if it's your first time in a long time, I want to say welcome back. Locked On Buckeyes drops a fresh new episode for you every Monday through Friday. Make sure you subscribe in 2 places. One, on your favorite audio podcast listening app. Apple Podcast, the Odyssey app, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. The list goes on and on and on. Make sure you subscribe there, at least one place on the audio side. Visual side, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes on the YouTube, youtube.com/LockedOnBuckeyes, or in the search engine, Locked On Buckeyes. You'll find the page. Subscribe in both places so you don't miss a beat. This year's linebacker situation Very, very interesting. I have been thinking about this for quite a while because you have newcomers. It doesn't matter who starts there on the defense right now. You have newcomers. If Pele Naoti or Palaie Naoti, the PG the fourth, as I've called him numerous times, if he starts, it don't matter because it's a new defense for him. It's a new face, a new brand of football because Big Ten football is a different brand of football than Pac-12 football. You want to get good play from both conferences. I know the Pac-12 gets a bad reputation, but if you look at top to bottom, the Pac-12 to the ACC, you might find that they're a whole lot closer than what the consensus thinks. East Coast bias helps the ACC, hurts the Pac-12. So if PG the fourth plays, no matter if it's Kevon Pope, Dallas Gant, Cody Simon, no matter who plays the football, Taraji Mitchell, no matter who plays that linebacker this year, you got new faces in new places. And we're going to start right there. I've started new jobs. You've started new jobs. You've been in new schools. You started school. You may have gone to college. You may have gone to grad school. You may have gone to a trade school. You may have done so many different things that are just new, occupation-wise. They're new. And when you're a new person, a new face, in a new place, you might be somebody that's very outgoing and say, oh, yeah, great, man. Yeah, I love this place. I love y'all. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Let's get this thing rolling. Hey, yeah, let's go. Let's go. But then you could be somebody like me. And I've told people numerous times when I have started new jobs, I've told them there's a good chance I'm not going to talk the first week, 2, maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. I ain't going to talk much to y'all. But when I start talking, when I get comfortable, I ain't going to shut up. I remember I had a job working as let me get this correct. I will help people refinance homes. That's the quickest way to do that, to get this out. I help people refinance homes. There was a guy named Wally. His girlfriend worked there. Her name was Megan. Marcus, him and I started together. Another guy named Joe. All three of us started together. There was AJ who started later. There was Jason who sat in the corner. Had been doing this for 15 years. Kind of like you're the new guy. I don't want to talk to you. You got to earn my respect. All that kind of stuff. There was Tom Holdsworth, who was, nobody don't drop a lot of last names, but there's Tom Holdsworth. He was the manager there. He was doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. Made a good living off of doing it. And I told everybody, I'm new here. I don't know y'all. Miranda, who never shut up. There was Kelly, who never shut up either. I mean, they're like a family there, and I'm just a new guy here trying to get acclimated. I talked to Marcus. I talked to Joe because, I got to talk to those boys that I come in with, but I didn't talk to many other people. And I told them, I'm a new person here. I won't talk much in the beginning. Just get used to it. But as this thing keeps going on, as we keep rolling on, I won't shut up. Same thing goes with Ohio State football players. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be like me, where they're quiet and reserved in the beginning and then boom. Or I'm not going to say they're going to be like the outgoing person that comes in, yeah, man, let's go. Let's go. I'm happy. Now, it's not really the office type environment, but inside like, yeah, man, I'm good. I'm going to shake your hand. Glad to meet you. Glad to meet you. Glad to meet you. I'm very excited to be here. Let's get this thing rolling. Not saying that these guys are going to be like that, but whenever you have new faces in new places, expectations about those people, it's very, very interesting and odd. Not odd, but it's very interesting, and a lot of times you just don't know what to expect. They can kill it in practice, but once those lights go on, 100,000 strong are watching you, yeah, the pressure, the way you react could be a little bit different. The principles and responsibilities are different between a 4-3 and a 4-2-5 defense. You're not just a new face in a new place. You're also changing and learning a completely different defense. Now, to Ohio State's benefit, they recruit guys that can be versatile, agile, mobile. They can move around and play different spots. You could be a middle linebacker, and if you need a shift and go to the will, you could do that, or the weak side linebacker. The old 4-3, if you need to be the strong side linebacker, you need to be in coverage, be more in space, you could do that. I mean, Ohio State does a phenomenal job of recruiting guys that can be cross-trained, just like Tehran Vincent and Haskell Garrett. The linebackers are the same thing, so that's great for them. However, the principles between a 4-3 and a 4-2-5 are different. The positioning on the field between a 4-3 and a 4-2-5, it's different. The responsibilities you're going to have when you're on the bench versus being on the field, those are different. The principles and the mindset it's different. So, granted, one, you're going to have a guy in Haskell Garrett who's experienced, a guy in Tehran Vincent who it can be good. I expect big play from him, but we're just not sure about what kind of play. You got guys on the outside, the edges that are very experienced that are going to be very, very good. I do expect there could be two different versions or variations of the rushman package because that's how good the pass rush can be for Ohio State, how many guys can be a part of that package. So there's so much that goes in there as far as the rushman package on the field, other positions, but the principles and responsibilities are different between a 4-3 linebacker, not if you're the middle linebacker, weak side or strong side, or if you are the 4-2-5 middle linebacker or weak side linebacker. Responsibilities are different. You might have, let's just say, Marcus Williamson next to you. You could have Langdon Ransom next to you. You could have Josh Proctor next to you. Probably wouldn't have all those different variations in a 4-3, 4-2-5, a lot more flexibility, a lot more ability to combat the opposition based off their personnel very, very quickly and easily. So things are different. Responsibilities and principles are different versus a 4-3 and a 4-2-5. That's one thought I have about the linebackers going into the season. And then last but not least, you're opening up against a very experienced, seasoned team. Brings back a lot of starters in Minnesota, and then you're going up against Oregon, who won the Pac. I think they won the Pac-12 last year. I know they were in the Pac-12 championship because I believe USC could not go. But you're going up against a team in Minnesota who brings back 8 starters, possibly 9 returning starters from last year. I'm looking at a preview magazine to my left. They have one guy as a backup as a returning starter. So let's say 8 returning starters there. That's a lot. In a year like COVID last year, where a lot of people are bringing back a lot of guys super seniors. I believe Illinois leads the country in the super senior category with 22. Minnesota is never a team you could just go to. You can go there, you can play the football game, probably going to be sold out, opening game of the season, and you can just walk over and laugh at it and say, oh, please, it's Minnesota. We can walk all over them. Ohio State might be double-digit favorites. That's fine. That's expected. But I do think this game is going to be a lot closer than what you think. You're not going up against an Akron. You're not going up against a Youngstown State. You're not going up against a Tulsa. You're going up against a conference opponent who just a couple years ago had 11 wins, went 11-2. Yeah, last year was last year. I understand all of that. But this is not a team nor a coach you could just say, oh, please, week 1. We ain't got nobody. We can walk all over them, the Ohio State to Minnesota. PJ Fleck's going to come in there, very enthusiastic. Mr. Row the boat. You might get tired of hearing that all week long. But once you get there on Thursday, I do believe the Minnesota Golden Gophers will be a team that will be ready for the challenge and up to the task of facing and wanting to beat and doing everything they can to beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. 3 thoughts I have going into the season about the linebacker position. What questions or thoughts do you have? Hit me up on Twitter. The DMs are open at jstevens07 on the Twitter and on the Instagram. Text me 850-462-5442. That's correct. Text me. That's a voicemail line there as well. But text me 850-462-5442. Or if you want to email me, jstevens317@gmail.com. Let's continue this conversation after the show. One more segment to go. When we come back, we will continue our Buckeye road trip around the NFL. Your boy Q, the host of Locked On Raiders, will be joining us to talk about former Buckeye defensive lineman, Mr. Jonathan Hankins. But first, check this out. Did you know that Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors plus the occasional limited time flavor as well? When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their favorites. If you don't know the Built Bar flavors, you're definitely missing out. Coconut and coconut almond, cherry and raspberry and mint brownie and peanut butter brownie and double chocolate and even salted caramel. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. Most of them have 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Go to built.com and use that friendly promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you will get 15% off your next order. Once again, go to built.com and use that friendly promo code LOCKED15, and you will get 15% off at built.com. And joining us now here on Locked on Buckeyes, it is your boy Q, the host of Locked on Raiders. Q, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. I'm blessed. I appreciate you having me on the show today, my man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No problem at all. Continuing our Buckeye road trip around the NFL. We were just in Indianapolis. Now we're going all the way to Vegas, hitting a long-time player, 9 years in the NFL. I've been with the Raiders since 2018, Jonathan Hankins. How have you assessed his tenure in Oakland, Vegas so far?
You know, it's funny. He's probably one of the guys that's least talked about, but he's very important. He's a very critical piece to that Raiders defensive line, which has underachieved for the past few years. I feel like they're turning the corner so far in training camp. It looks like it. But Jonathan Hankins is the one guy they never talk about. But, man, he's such a key part, and he's a really good player. And everyone really, when you ask about him, and he met with the media the other day, and he was just like, yeah, this guy is on the team. He's a really good player, and he just seems to get overlooked a lot. I guess it's kind of similar to a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman. If you're not talking about him, it's okay. Because I'm telling you, he's a guy that plays a huge role on this Raiders defense. So, yeah, Jonathan Hankins, man, he's just done everything he's supposed to do since signing on with the Raiders. And if the team's going to make that turn defensively this year, he's going to play a major factor.
Not sure how you overlook or don't talk about a guy that stands 6'3", 240, or 6'3", 340, excuse me.
Right. Exactly. That's the thing. Like I don't know how you overlook the guy, but you talk about the edge rushers, you talk about linebackers, you talk about corners and safeties, but a lot of times the guy in the middle, the dude plugging up the holes who might not get the statistical numbers is the guy who gets overlooked, Jonathan Hankins. But he plays such a major role, and again, he's going to be a key cog in this Raiders defense if they're going to turn the corner this year. They have Unique Ngakoue on one edge. They have Max Crosby coming off the other edge. For that to work, for that pocket to get collapsed, it's going to take the big man in the middle. Jonathan Hankins is going to have a lot on his shoulders this year.
What are a few aspects of his role for this defense?
Well, I mean, he's got to collapse the pocket. He's got to make it so there's no lane, there's no pocket for Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, or whoever Denver rolls out there. But those guys in particular, Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, those guys can climb the pocket in a major way and deliver the ball. He's got to be there. He's got to take on double teams. He's got to be the guy that can suck those double teams in and allow a Unique Ngakoue, a Max Crosby, a Cleve Farrell to be able to get loose and get to the quarterback. So, I mean, again, he's not going to wow you by stats, but he's going to wow you by what he does each and every play. And, again, he's been one of the most overlooked guys, but, man, he's a critical piece of this defense.
If you're an opposing offense, you're looking at Jonathan Hankins, how do you go about trying to exploit some of his weaknesses so you can move the ball?
Well, I mean, you just have to try to lock him up in a great block. I mean, that really is he. The thing about Hankins that I notice is he's got that motor. You know, you can have him blocked at one level, and then all of a sudden he's gonna keep fighting. He's gonna keep fighting. He's gonna hit you with another move. Being there at training camp the past few weeks, seeing how he kind of navigates, and I'll tell you this: Gerald McCoy has been added to the roster, and he's an old wily veteran. Even though Jonathan Hankins has been in the league as long as he has, he's been picking up some tools and some tricks from Gerald McCoy as well. So I really feel like he's going to have a little bit more, but just kind of knowledge of the position and even how to diagnose a play before it happens, before the snap of the ball. So I just think that locking him up in is the best blocks that they can do. That's what they really need to do. But I mean, his motor just doesn't quit, so he just keeps going and going. That's the thing about him, man. And so as long as the Raiders can find a way to kind of spell him and give him some breathers here and there, he'll be fine and he'll be a dominant force.
You're sitting here saying he keeps going and going and going, and in my head, I'm thinking about the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah,
that bad boy just keeps going and going and going.
Yes, it's exactly what he reminds me of. Like I said, being there the last few weeks up close and personal and being able to observe, and I've really been paying attention to the defense because, well, that's the Achilles heel of the Raiders is the defense. So, just seeing all these guys and how they're kind of putting it all together and trying to form this team, trying to find the best 53 men for the roster. There's no doubt about it. Jonathan Hankins is one of them, and he's a guy. Again, it's so funny that he's a guy that gets overlooked all the time. Even when we met with him in the media session, it was like, okay, here's Jonathan Hankins, and then we asked him about 5 or 6 questions. It's like, all right, thanks. I mean, it's so funny that a guy that critical to the success of the defense could really get overlooked and not really be a factor as far as somebody that we even want to talk to. But he just is that guy. He's just so important to the success of the team.
Overall, last question for you, Q. Overall outlook on the entire season, adding one game to the season, 17 games this year. What are your expectations, pluses, minuses? breakout, I'd say breakout playing better than he already has types of expectations for Hankins this year?
I just maybe think getting to the quarterback a couple more times than he'll average, 1-2 sacks, but quarterback pressures, that the sacks numbers really don't matter, but the pressures, being able to collapse that pocket, like I mentioned, being able to take on that double team, this year it's going to be very critical that he plays that role and does it in a major way. Like I said, Yannick Ngakoue coming over as a free agent. Their expectations are double-digit sacks for him, double-digit sacks for Max Crosby. For that to happen, Hankins has got to play a big role. So I just think he's just got to play strong like he always does, continue to have that motor that keeps running like he does, and just help that out the exterior of the defensive line by being a dominant force on the interior. So I think him and Gerald McCoy are going to really be a tag team that's going to be a tough out for opposing offensive lines.
I believe so as well. Big man in the middle. Big man dominates a lot of space. Yeah. Q, I'm happy you're here to talk about this. If you could let everyone know where they can catch you on Twitter and where they can listen to your show as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. You can find the Locked On Raiders podcast anywhere you can get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. I mean, you could always look up Locked On Raiders podcast. It's somewhere. But also check me out on Twitter at your boy Q254, and that's where the link to my podcast is every single day. It's usually up by about 12:15 in the morning Pacific Standard Time. So as soon as you wake up, no matter what time you wake up, the show's always available for you.
Q, this has been fun. One Raider down. 2 more to go. Continuing our Buckeye road trip around the NFL. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for being on.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, my man.